Nash stood in the central hall of the Galactic Council station and looked at the assignment paper in his clawed hand. His scales rippled with annoyance. A diplomatic escort mission. With humans. Of all the species in the galaxy, they had assigned him to babysit humans. He was Thornian, a member of the proudest warrior race in known space. His people stood 8 feet tall with armored hides that could stop plasma fire. They had never lost a war in 10,000 years. They were apex predators born to dominate, and now he had to accompany a human ship on some boring trade mission. Humans were nothing. They were soft. They had no armor, no claws, no fangs, no venom. Their skin tore like wet paper. They could barely see in the dark. They couldn't even digest half the foods other species ate without getting sick. By every measure of evolution, they should have died out on their home world. Yet somehow they had reached the stars 50 years ago and joined the council. Nash folded the paper and walked toward the docking bay. His heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. Other species moved aside when they saw him coming. That was normal. That was respect. That was how things should be. The human ship was small. It was called the Rising Dawn, which Nash thought was a stupid name. The ship looked like a cargo hauler with some weapons bolted on as an afterthought. Nothing impressive. Nothing that spoke of power or dominance. The airlock opened and Nash ducked through. Even human doorways were too small for proper warriors. Inside, the ship was cramped and cluttered. Screens everywhere, cables running along the walls. It smelled strange, like recycled air mixed with something he couldn't identify. Coffee, though he didn't know that word yet. A human woman stood waiting for him. She was small, maybe half his height. Her skin was a light brown color and her black hair was tied back in a simple way. She wore a dark blue uniform with captain's marks on the collar. Ambassador Nash, she said with a slight bow of her head. Welcome aboard the Rising Dawn. I'm Captain G1. Nash looked down at her. Captain, I am here because the council requires it, not because I wish to be. If his rudeness bothered her, she didn't show it. She just smiled. A gentle expression that showed her small, flat teeth. I understand. Your reputation precedes you. We're honored to have such an experienced diplomat with us. Was she mocking him? Nash couldn't tell. Human faces were hard to read. She led him through the ship. This is our pilot, Minho. A young human male with messy black hair looked up from a console and waved. He was grinning like an idiot. Engineering is run by Hyunwoo. A slightly older male nodded from where he was doing something with a panel. And this is Yuna, our security officer. Nash almost laughed. The security officer was a tiny female human, barely reaching 5 feet tall. She probably weighed less than one of his arms. She looked at him with dark eyes that showed nothing, then nodded once and went back to checking a weapon. Your security officer, Nash said slowly. Is that small thing? Captain Jiwan's smile didn't change. Yuna is the best at what she does. I am sure, Nash said, not even trying to hide the sarcasm in his voice. I feel so very safe now. The captain showed him to his quarters. The room was tiny. The bed was too small. The ceiling was too low. Everything about this ship reminded him that it was built for weak little creatures who needed machines to survive. We'll be departing in 1 hour, Captain Jiwan said from the doorway. There's a briefing in the conference room in 30 minutes. I hope you'll join us, Nash grunted. He didn't want to join them for anything, but it was his duty. 30 minutes later, he squeezed into the conference room. The chairs were too small, so he stood. The human crew sat around a table, looking at screens that showed star charts and trade routes. Captain Jiwan explained the mission. They were going to a frontier world called New Horizon to negotiate a trade agreement for rare minerals. Simple. Boring. Beneath a warrior of his status, the route will take us through the Vortex Nebula, she said, pointing at the map. It's a bit rough, but Minho can handle it. The pilot grinned again. Piece of cake. Nash shook his head. The Vortex Nebula is dangerous. The gravitational fields are unstable. A wise captain would go around. That would add 2 weeks to our journey, Captain Jiwan said calmly. We have a schedule to keep. Better late than dead, Nash said. We'll be fine, Minho said, still grinning. I've flown through worse. Nash doubted that. These humans had probably never seen real danger. They lived soft lives on their soft worlds with their soft bodies. Your species is fragile, Nash said, looking around the table. You have no natural defenses. No armor, no weapons. You are prey animals who got lucky. Perhaps you should remember that and act with appropriate caution." The room went quiet. The humans looked at each other. Then Captain Jiwon smiled again, that same gentle smile that was starting to annoy him. "Perhaps," she said softly. "But fragility teaches caution, Ambassador, and caution keeps you alive." Velnash didn't understand what she meant. It sounded like weak philosophy. His people didn't need caution. They needed strength, and they had it. The briefing ended and the crew went to their stations. Velnash strapped himself into a seat in the observation area. Through the windows, he watched as the station grew smaller. The ship's engines hummed to life. They were leaving. Velnash closed his eyes. A week of this. Maybe 2. Then he could file his report, forget about these humans, and get back to real diplomatic work. The ship had been flying for about 3 hours when an alarm sounded. Velnash opened his eyes and sat up. The noise was shrill and annoying. Captain Jiwon's voice came over the ship's speakers. "All hands, we've picked up a distress signal. Mining station Kepler 7. They're not responding to hails. We're changing course to investigate." Velnash unbuckled and headed to the bridge. When he got there, Captain Jiwon was standing behind Minho looking at the pilot's screens. "This is not our mission," Velnash said firmly. "We are on a diplomatic assignment. We have a schedule." The captain didn't look at him. "Someone is in trouble. We have to help. Why? It is not your responsibility. Let the local authorities handle it." Now she turned to face him. Her expression was still calm, but there was something in her eyes he couldn't quite read. "Because we're here and they're not. Because people might be dying. Because it's the right thing to do." "The right thing," Velnash repeated. "You risk your mission, your ship, your crew for strangers?" "Yes," she said simply, "that is foolish, maybe." She turned back to the screens. "But we don't leave people behind. That's not who we are." Velnash wanted to argue more, but he could see it was pointless. These humans were suicidal idiots. Fine. Let them waste their time. He would note it in his report. The ship changed course. Velnash watched as the star field shifted outside the windows. They were heading toward the distress signal, toward whatever danger waited there. He felt nothing. Why would he? He was Thornian. He had faced down battle fleets. He had stared death in the face 100 times. Whatever was at that mining station, it would be nothing to him. But as he watched the determined faces of the human crew, as he saw them preparing for something unknown, he felt the first small seed of something strange. Not fear, of course not. He didn't know fear, not yet. The mining station floated in the darkness like a dead thing. All its lights were off except for a few emergency beacons that blinked red and weak. No ships were docked at the ports. No one answered the hails that Captain Jiwon kept sending. Velnash stood on the bridge and watched the screens. The station's life support was still running. Scans showed people inside, maybe 50 or 60 of them. But something was wrong. The life signs were moving in strange patterns, jerking around randomly like insects. "Could be a technical malfunction," Hyunwoo said from his engineering station. "The sensors might be giving bad readings." "Or something else," Yuna said quietly. The small security officer was checking her weapons with quick, practiced movements. Captain Jiwon studied the screens for a long moment. Then she nodded. "We're going in. Yuna, get a team ready. I'll lead it myself." Velnash stepped forward. "You should not go, Captain. Send your security team. You are too valuable to risk." She glanced at him. "I don't ask my crew to do anything I won't do myself. That is foolish. That's leadership." She headed toward the armory. "You're welcome to join us, Ambassador. We could use someone with your combat experience." Velnash followed her. Of course he would go. Not because these humans needed him, but because someone competent should be there. These soft creatures would probably panic at the first sign of danger. The armory was a small room filled with weapons. Yuna was already there, helping 2 other crew members put on armor vests. A male named Taehyun and a female named Sohee. They moved quickly and quietly, checking each other's equipment. Captain Jiwon put on a vest and picked up a rifle. It looked too big for her small frame, but she handled it like she knew what she was doing. Velnash didn't need armor. His hide was armor. He took a plasma rifle anyway. "What is the plan, Captain?" "We dock at Bay 3, it's closest to the command center. We find survivors, get them out, and figure out what happened. Simple extraction." Nothing was ever simple. Velnash had lived long enough to know that. They boarded a small shuttle and flew to the station. Mino piloted them in with steady hands. The docking was smooth and quiet. The shuttle connected to the airlock with a soft thump. Life support is stable on the other side, Hyunwoo said over the radio. Air is breathable. Temperature is normal. But I'm still getting those weird readings on the life signs. Copy that, Captain Jiwon said. She looked at her team. Stay together. Watch your corners. If something doesn't feel right, say so. The airlock opened. Darkness waited beyond. The station's internal lights were dead. Only the emergency lighting worked, casting everything in a dim red glow. They moved inside. Velnash went second, right behind Captain Jiwon. The corridor was empty and silent. Too silent. Even a damaged station should have some noise. Humming machines. Air recyclers, something. Yuna moved like a shadow, her rifle up, checking every doorway. For someone so small, she was surprisingly quiet. They reached an intersection. Blood was smeared on the walls. Not a lot, but enough to show something violent had happened. Command center is 200 meters ahead, Captain Jiwon whispered. They kept moving. Velnash's eyes were better in the dark than human eyes, so he took point. He could see shapes in the shadows, strange marks on the floor and walls. A sound echoed through the corridor. Scraping. Like something being dragged. The team stopped. Everyone's weapons came up. They waited. A figure stumbled around the corner ahead. It was a mining worker still wearing his work suit, but something was wrong with the way he moved. His steps were jerky and uneven. His head tilted at a strange angle. Sir? Captain Jiwon called out. We're here to help. Are you injured? The man's head snapped toward them. In the red light, Velnash could see something on the man's neck. Something that moved. Something alive. Scraith, Velnash whispered. The word came out before he could stop it. What? Yuna asked. Parasites. They take control of the host's nervous system. They should be extinct. The possessed miner rushed at them with a scream that didn't sound human. It was too high, too broken. Yuna fired once. The shot hit the parasite on the man's neck perfectly. The creature exploded in a spray of black fluid. The miner collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. Velnash stared. That shot had been perfect, surgical, and Yuna's face hadn't changed at all. No fear, no surprise, just calm focus. More footsteps echoed in the darkness. Any more? Back to the intersection, Captain Jiwon ordered. Her voice was steady and quiet. Defensive positions, they fell back quickly. The team moved like they had practiced this 1,000 times. They set up at the intersection, creating overlapping fields of fire. Possessed miners came around the corner. 6 of them, 8, 10. They moved wrong, like puppets with tangled strings. The parasites on their necks pulsed and twitched. Aim for the parasites, Captain Jiwon said. Try not to kill the hosts. Then the shooting started. Velnash had been in combat before. He had fought in honor duels and border wars. He knew what battle looked like. His people roared when they fought. They charged with fury and pride. Battle was glorious, this was not that. The humans fired with cold precision. Every shot calculated. Every movement efficient. Taehyun and Sohee covered the left approach. Yuna covered the right. Captain Jiwon covered the center. They didn't shout. They didn't waste ammunition. They just systematically destroyed every parasite that came at them. Bodies fell. Most of them were still alive, just unconscious. The humans were shooting to save them even while being attacked. Velnash fired his own weapon. He hit 3 parasites. But he was watching the humans more than the enemy. Their faces were calm, almost serene, like they were doing routine work instead of fighting for their lives. It was disturbing. The attack stopped. 14 possessed miners lay on the floor, all of them still breathing. The humans had saved them even while defending themselves. Sohee, check them, Captain Jiwon ordered. Make sure the parasites are dead. The rest of us will push forward. The medic knelt and started examining the unconscious miners. The others moved ahead toward the command center. They found 12 survivors barricaded in the command center. All of them were terrified. They had been hiding for 2 days. One of them was the station manager, a Delkian female with 4 arms who was shaking badly. They came out of nowhere, she said. They were in one of the ore containers. They spread so fast, we barely had time to lock ourselves in. How many are infected? Captain Jiwon asked. Maybe 40. Everyone who was outside when it started. Captain Jiwon nodded. We'll get you out. Can you walk? The survivors could walk. The team escorted them back to the shuttle. They had to stop twice more to fight off infected miners. Each time the humans moved with that same cold efficiency. Each time Velnash felt more confused. Where was their fear? Where was their anger? They fought like machines, not living beings. They got the survivors into the shuttle. As they were about to leave, Minho's voice came over the radio. His tone had changed. The playful note was gone. "Captain, we've got a problem. I'm picking up a ship signature leaving the system. Fast, really fast. Identity? Unknown. But it left right after we showed up. That's not a coincidence." Captain Jiwan was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Someone released these parasites deliberately. This was an attack." Velnash felt something cold in his chest. "We should report this to the council and leave. This is not our concern." The captain looked at him. Those soft human eyes were hard now. "If someone is weaponizing Scraith, we need to stop them before they hit a populated world. That is not our mission. It is now." She turned to Minho. "Can you track that ship?" "Maybe. The trail is faint, but it's there." They went into the Vortex Nebula. The nebula. Of course, the most dangerous space in this sector, where sensors barely worked and gravity could tear a ship apart. "Follow it," Captain Jiwan ordered. "Captain," Velnash said. His voice was harder than he meant it to be. "This is insane. We are one small ship. We know nothing about the enemy. We should wait for council forces. By the time they get here, the trail will be cold. People will die." She looked at her crew. "I know it's dangerous. If anyone wants to stay behind, I'll understand." No one moved. No one spoke. They all just looked at her and nodded. Velnash wanted to scream. These humans were going to get themselves killed for strangers, for people they had never met and would never meet. It made no sense, but he was stuck with them. So he would go into the nebula. He would watch them die. And he would survive to tell the council how foolish humans were. The shuttle returned to the rising dawn. They left the survivors with emergency supplies and a beacon for council rescue ships. Then they turned toward the nebula. As they approached that swirling mass of gas and twisted space, Velnash saw Minho's hands on the controls. They were steady, but they were shaking. Just a little bit. Just barely visible. The pilot was afraid. He was afraid, and he was doing it anyway. Velnash didn't understand that at all. The Vortex Nebula looked like a wound in space. Clouds of gas glowed purple and red. Lightning jumped between particles. And somewhere inside that chaos, gravity bent and twisted in ways that could crush a ship like an insect. Velnash stood on the bridge and watched Minho pilot them in. The young human's fingers danced across the controls. His eyes never left the screens showing sensor data and navigation plots, and he was humming. Quietly under his breath, a soft tune that made no sense. "You seem pleased," Velnash said. Minho glanced back with a quick grin. "Nah, just concentrating. I always hum when I'm concentrating. We could die in there." "Yeah." The grin faded but didn't disappear completely. "That's why I'm concentrating." The ship entered the nebula. Immediately, alarms started beeping. Gravitational stress warnings, sensor interference alerts, navigation uncertainty notifications. The smooth flight became rough. The ship shook and groaned. "Hyunwoo, how are we looking?" Captain Jiwan asked. The engineer's voice came through the speakers. "Shields are holding. Hull integrity is good, but if it gets much worse, I can't promise anything. Keep us flying." "Always do, Captain." Velnash held onto a support rail. Any sane captain would turn back. Any species with survival instincts would run from this. But the humans pushed forward, following a faint trail through conditions that should be impossible to navigate. Hours passed. The shaking never stopped. Velnash watched the crew work. Captain Jiwan moved between stations, checking on everyone. Yuna stood quietly near the weapons console, ready for anything. Taehyun and Sohee prepared medical supplies and damage control equipment. They were all afraid. Velnash could see it now. Small signs. The way Taehyun kept adjusting his grip on a tool. The way Sohee's eyes moved constantly, checking and rechecking equipment. They were terrified, but their hands didn't stop working. "Got something," Minho said suddenly. "Structure ahead, big one. It's hidden in the nebula's dead zone where the gravity fields cancel each other out." The main screen showed a shape forming in the purple clouds. A facility. Massive. Built into an asteroid with docking bays and weapons platforms. Ships were attached to it. 3 combat vessels, each bigger than the Rising Dawn. "Scan it," Captain Jiwan ordered. Hyunwoo's voice came back, worried. I'm picking up life signs. A lot of them. At least 200. And weapons. Lots of weapons. Captain, that's a military installation. Keep scanning. I want to know everything. More data came in. The facility was manufacturing something. Biological something. The same signatures as the Scraith parasites from the mining station. It's a bioweapons lab, Velnash said. He felt something cold spreading through his chest. This is a Kethrol operation. Captain Jiwan looked at him. You know them? Everyone knows them. Crime syndicate, ruthless, well-armed, very dangerous, he pointed at the screen. That facility probably has enough firepower to destroy a fleet. We need to leave now. We need to destroy it. Velnash stared at her. Have you lost your mind? We are 7 people on a diplomatic ship. They have 200 armed mercenaries and combat vessels. We cannot fight them. We can't let them keep making these weapons either. Call the council. Let them handle it. Captain Jiwan shook her head. By the time the council mobilizes forces and gets them here, the Kethrol will be gone. They'll move the operation somewhere else. We're here now. We have to act now. That is suicide, she turned to her crew. Meeting in the conference room. 5 minutes. They gathered around the small table again. Captain Jiwan brought up plans of the facility. She had somehow pulled schematics from the scans. Here's what we're going to do, she said calmly. We use the nebula's interference to hide our approach. We ram through their docking bay shields. We land inside. Plant explosives on the manufacturing equipment and the storage tanks. Then we get out before they realize what happened. Silence filled the room. Velnash waited for anyone to say this was insane, to refuse, to show some sense. I'll need 15 minutes to prepare the charges, Hyunwoo said. I can have breach charges ready in 10, Yuna added. The ship's armor can take 1 ram, Minho said. But we'll be flying on prayers after that. Captain Jiwan looked around the table. This is volunteer only. If you don't want to do this, I understand. No judgment, no one moved. No one spoke up to refuse, then we vote, she said. All in favor? Every hand went up, including somehow Velnash's own. He stared at his clawed hand in the air. Why had he raised it? This was madness. Unanimous, Captain Jiwan said with a small smile. Let's go save some lives. They prepared. Velnash watched Hyunwoo build explosives from ship supplies. He watched Yuna load weapons and check armor. He watched them all get ready to die. Why? He asked Hyunwoo. The engineer was carefully connecting wires to a timer. Why are you not afraid? Hyunwoo looked up at him. Oh, I'm terrified. You do not look terrified. Because I'm paying attention. Fear means we're awake, means we're taking this seriously. He went back to his work. Fear keeps us sharp. My people do not fear. Then how do they stay alive? Velnash had no answer. The rising dawn moved closer to the facility. Minho flew with that same shaking hand precision. The ship slipped through the nebula like a ghost. On the screens, Velnash could see guard ships patrolling. But they weren't looking carefully. They didn't think anyone could find this place. Approaching docking bay 3, Minho whispered. Everyone hold on. This is going to hurt. The ship accelerated. The engines roared. They shot through the purple cloud straight at the facility's shields. Impact, the whole ship screamed. Metal bent. Alarms shrieked. The shields collapsed under the force. The rising dawn punched through into the docking bay and crashed onto the deck with a horrible grinding sound. Go, 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 Captain Jiwan shouted. The boarding ramp dropped. The team rushed out. Velnash followed, his rifle ready. The docking bay was full of surprised Kethrol mercenaries. They stared at the smoking ship. They hadn't expected this. They weren't ready. The humans were. Yuna fired first. 3 mercenaries dropped. Taehyun threw a stun grenade. The blast knocked down 5 more. Captain Jiwan advanced with smooth practice steps, shooting as she moved. Velnash fired too. But he was watching the humans more than fighting. They moved through the bay like they had done this 100 times. No hesitation, no panic. Just cold, efficient violence. They reached the main corridor. Alarms were ringing now. The facility knew they were here. Manufacturing level is 2 floors down, Captain Jiwan said. Hyunwoo, Sohee, you're with me. Yuna, Taehyun, Velnash, hold this corridor. Don't let anyone follow us. The captain's team ran deeper into the facility. Velnash and the others set up a defensive position at a corridor intersection. Enemy soldiers came. A lot of them, armed with rifles and in armor. 30 at least, Yuna said quietly. She was crouched behind a cargo container. Her face was still calm. That's almost fair, then she smiled. Actually smiled. Velnash felt something break inside his mind. These humans were insane. They were outnumbered. They were outgunned. They were probably going to die here in this horrible place far from home. And they were smiling about it. The fight started. Velnash had been in battles before. He knew combat. But this was different. The humans didn't fight like warriors. They fought like hunters. Patient. Careful. Deadly. Yuna took down 6 soldiers before they even knew where she was shooting from. Taehyun used the environment, collapsing a ceiling section onto a group of enemies. They didn't waste ammunition. They didn't take unnecessary risks. They just systematically eliminated threats and they were wounded. Velnash saw Yuna get hit. Twice. The bullets went through her armor and into her side. She grunted, stumbled, then kept firing. Her face never changed. "You are shot," Velnash said. "I know," she replied calmly. "I'll deal with it later." Later. She was bleeding and she said later. More enemies came. The corridor filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Bodies lay everywhere. Most of them were Kethral. But the humans were standing, still fighting, still moving. An explosion shook the facility. Then another. Captain Jiwon's voice came over the radio. "Charges are set. Pulling back now. Clear the path." "Copy," Yuna said. "We're about to get busy," she was right. The last of the Kethral soldiers charged all at once. 30 of them in a desperate rush. They wanted to stop the intruders before they could escape. Velnash prepared to die. This was too many. Even he couldn't fight that many. But Taehyun grinned at him. Actually grinned. "Just like training," he said. Then the humans attacked. They didn't wait for the enemy to reach them. They ran forward to meet them. Velnash roared and charged with them. He didn't understand anymore. He didn't understand any of this. But he fought anyway. He fought beside these insane soft creatures who smiled at death and ran toward danger. The battle was chaos. Close quarters. Hand to hand. Velnash used his claws and his strength. He was covered in blood, some his own, most not. And the humans just kept fighting. They were smaller, weaker, more fragile. But they didn't stop. They didn't break. Captain Jiwon's team came running back. "Move, the whole place is going to blow." They ran for the ship. Behind them, Kethral soldiers gave chase. Velnash turned and fired. Yuna was beside him, still shooting even though she could barely stand. They reached the rising dawn. Everyone scrambled aboard. Minyo had the engines already running. The rising dawn shook violently as it fled from the exploding facility. Behind them, the entire structure was tearing itself apart in a chain of explosions. Fire bloomed in the darkness. Metal twisted and broke. 3 combat ships breaking off from the station, Minho called out. His hands were tight on the controls. "They're coming after us." "Of course they are," Captain Jiwon said. She was pressing a bandage to a cut on her arm. "How fast can we go?" "Not fast enough. Not with the damage we took." Minho's screen showed red warnings everywhere. "The ram destroyed our forward shields. Hull breach in Section 7. And we're still in the nebula." Velnash watched the pursuing ships on the tactical display. They were bigger, faster, better armed. The rising dawn couldn't fight them. Couldn't outrun them. They were trapped in this nightmare of twisted space with enemies at their back. "Captain," he said quietly, "we should surrender. They will accept my diplomatic credentials. They will let me go. Perhaps they will spare you as well." Captain Jiwon looked at him. Her face was dirty with smoke and blood. Her uniform was torn, but her eyes were steady. "And let them keep making those weapons? Let them use them on civilians? We destroyed the facility. That is enough. That was one facility. They have the knowledge to build more. We have evidence now. We have scans. We have data. If we can get this to the council, they can stop the whole operation. If we can get there. We cannot." She smiled, that gentle smile again. "Maybe not. But we have to try." Hyunwoo's voice came through the speakers. "I've got the data packet ready, Captain. Everything we scanned, all the evidence. I'm broadcasting it now on all council frequencies." "Good," Captain Jiwon said. "Even if we don't make it, someone will get the message." Velnash stared at her. She had already accepted that they might die. She had planned for it. These humans thought about failure and kept going anyway. The pursuing ships were getting closer. Weapons fire lit up the nebula. Plasma bolts streaked past the rising dawn. One hit the rear shields. The whole ship shuddered. Shields at 40%, Minho said. His voice was tight now. The playful tone was completely gone. 2 more hits like that and we're done. Then don't let them hit us 2 more times, Captain Jiwan said. Working on it. The pilot threw the ship into a steep dive, plunging deeper into the nebula. The gravitational stress alarm screamed. Velnash felt his stomach lurch as the ship twisted and turned through impossible space. Another hit. The lights flickered. Shields at 20%. In the medical corner of the bridge, Sohee was working on Yuna. The small security officer had finally stopped fighting and let someone treat her wounds. 2 bullets had gone clean through her side. She had been fighting for 30 minutes with that injury. Why did you not say you were shot? Velnash asked her. Yuna looked at him. Her face was pale but calm. Job wasn't done yet. You could have died. Maybe. But others would have died for sure if I stopped. She winced as Sohee applied a pain blocker. That's the deal. We accept the risk. Velnash didn't understand. In his culture, individual glory mattered. Personal honor. Survival of the strongest. But these humans seemed to think dying for others was normal. Expected, even good. There. Minho said suddenly. The Hellmouth. On the screen, Velnash saw it. A gravitational anomaly. A swirling vortex of bent space where 3 black holes had collided millions of years ago. The gravitational forces there were impossible. Unpredictable. Deadly. Every ship that had tried to cross it had been destroyed. It was marked on every star chart as absolutely forbidden. No, Velnash said. You cannot be serious. It's our only chance, Captain Jiwan said. They won't follow us through. Because it is suicide. Minho, can you fly it? The pilot was quiet for a long moment. His hands were shaking worse now. Velnash could see sweat on his face. Maybe 50-50 odds. Maybe less. I'll take those odds over 0. Do it. Captain, Velnash started. I know what I'm asking, she said softly. She looked at her crew. At Minho gripping the controls. At Hyunwoo frantically rerouting power to the shields. At Yuna bleeding on a medical cot. At all of them, I know. But if we don't try, they win. Those weapons get used. People die. So we try. Why? Velnash demanded. His voice was louder than he meant it to be. Why do you keep pushing forward? Why do you not just surrender? Accept defeat, live? So he looked up from treating Yuna. The medic's hands were covered in blood. Because if we don't, who will? Someone else. It is not your responsibility. Yes, it is, Taehyun said from the weapons console. We're here, we saw it. That makes it our responsibility. Velnash wanted to scream. These humans were insane. They were choosing to fly into certain death. They could surrender. They could live. But they were choosing this, and he was choosing it too. Because he was stuck here with them. Because he had raised his hand in that vote. Because somehow, impossibly, he had started to care whether these mad creatures survived. The ship turned toward the Hellmouth. The pursuing vessels stopped. They actually stopped chasing. Even criminals weren't crazy enough to follow. Here we go, Minho whispered. The rising dawn entered the Hellmouth. Reality broke. Gravity pulled in 6 directions at once. The ship twisted like a leaf in a storm. Alarms screamed. Metal groaned. Velnash felt his inner organs shift as the forces tried to tear him apart. On the screen, he could see space bending. Light curved in impossible ways. Stars stretched into lines. Darkness opened up like mouths, and Minho flew through it. The pilot's hands moved faster than Velnash could follow. He was reading the gravitational currents like wind, steering the ship through gaps that appeared and vanished in microseconds, threading a needle while the needle moved and the thread tried to strangle him. Minho was still humming. That same quiet tune, and he was crying. Velnash could see tears running down the pilot's face. I am scared, Minho said suddenly. His voice was shaking. I am so scared. I know, Captain Jiwan said. She put a hand on his shoulder. Keep flying. I do not want to die, then don't fly us through. I cannot. This is impossible. You're doing it anyway, and he was. Even while crying. Even while shaking. Even while admitting his terror. His hand stayed on the controls. He kept flying, Velnash watched. He finally understood. These humans weren't brave because they didn't feel fear. They felt everything. Every moment of terror. Every possibility of death. They felt it all and they kept going. Hyunwoo, Velnash said. Why are humans like this? The engineer was holding onto his console as the ship bucked and shook. Like what? Afraid? Always afraid. But never stopping, Hyunwoo managed a weak smile. We evolved as prey animals, Ambassador. We were hunted. We were food. Fear is what kept us alive long enough to become us. He grabbed his console harder as the ship lurched. We learned to be afraid, and we learned to act despite it. My people never learned fear. Then they never learned bravery either. The words hit Velnash like a physical blow. His people were warriors, proud, strong, apex predators, but they had never been tested. They had never had to choose courage. They were born with strength and stayed strong. These humans were born weak and chose strength every day. A massive gravitational wave hit the ship. Something tore in the hull. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. We're not going to make it, Minho said. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tried. Keep flying, Captain Ji-won ordered. There's too much damage. The controls are not responding. Keep flying. Velnash felt the ship breaking apart. This was the end. He was going to die here with these humans. These strange, terrifying, wonderful humans who smiled at death and flew into hell. He should be angry. He should rage at the injustice. But all he felt was a strange sense of peace. If he had to die, at least it was beside warriors. Real warriors. Not warriors who knew no fear. Warriors who knew nothing but fear and fought anyway. Then, impossible as everything else these humans had done, they broke through. The hellmouth spat them out on the other side. Space became normal again. The gravitational forces released their grip. The ship tumbled through open space, damaged and dying but intact. We made it, Minho whispered. He sounded surprised. We actually made it. The crew erupted in quiet celebration. No cheers, no shouts. Just relieved laughter and tears. But on the sensors, a new contact appeared. One ship, big, a battlecruiser. That's a Kethril command vessel, Hyunwoo said quietly. All the relief died. They were waiting. They knew we'd come through here. How many people on that ship? Captain Ji-won asked. 300, maybe more. They had escaped one death just to find another. The battlecruiser was moving toward them. The rising dawn was crippled. They had no shields. Limited weapons. A damaged hull. This is it, Taehyun said. We can't fight that. Captain Ji-won stood up. She looked at her crew. Send the data again. All channels. Maximum broadcast. Make sure everyone hears what the Kethril are doing. Already sending, Hyunwoo said. Then we hold them here. We keep them busy until council ships arrive. We will die, Velnash said. Probably. She picked up a rifle. But maybe we buy enough time for that message to reach someone who can help. Maybe we stop them from using those weapons. Maybe we save people we'll never meet. She looked at Velnash. That's what we do, Ambassador. We make the hard choices. We do the impossible things. Not because we're fearless, but because we're the ones who are here. Velnash picked up his weapon. The first shot from the battlecruiser missed. Barely. It streaked past the rising dawn close enough that Velnash could see it on the exterior cameras. A bolt of plasma that could have vaporized their entire ship. Evasive, Captain Ji-won ordered. Minho's hands moved across the controls. The damaged ship turned sluggishly. Too slow. Much too slow. They are targeting our engines, Velnash said, watching the tactical display. They want to disable us, not destroy us. They want their data back. Then let's make them work for it. Captain Ji-won turned to Taehyun. Return fire. Everything we have. Captain, our weapons can barely scratch their shields. I know. Do it anyway. The rising dawn fired its small weapons. The shots hit the massive battle cruiser and did almost nothing. But they kept firing, making noise, making the enemy pay attention. More plasma bolts came at them. One hit. The ship shook. Hull breach alarm sounded. Sealing compartments, Hyunwoo said. We've lost the rear section. Life support failing in 3 areas. How long can we last? Captain Ji-won asked. Against that? 5 minutes. Maybe less. 5 minutes. Then they would die. Velnash gripped his weapon. He had faced death before, but always with the certainty that his species would continue, that his legacy would live on. Now he was going to die far from home beside aliens who had dragged him into their impossible crusade. And somehow, impossibly, he didn't regret it. Captain, Hyunwoo said suddenly. The broadcast. Someone's responding. Multiple someones. I'm picking up FTL signatures. Ships are coming. How many? At least 10, maybe more. Council ships. Captain Jiwon's face didn't change, but Velnash saw her shoulders relax slightly. How long until they get here? 12 minutes. Then we hold for 12 minutes. She looked around the damaged bridge. We can do 12 minutes. Another hit. The ship shuddered. Lights flickered. Sparks flew from a damaged console. So he rushed to put out a small fire. 4 minutes, Minho said quietly. That's what we have. 4 minutes of engine power before everything fails. Then we use them well, Captain Jiwon said. The battle became a desperate dance. Minho flew the crippled ship through space, dodging what he could, absorbing hits when he couldn't dodge. The battlecruiser kept firing, trying to disable them without destroying them. Velnash watched the humans work. Hyunwoo rerouted power from dying systems to keep them flying. Taehyun kept firing their useless weapons, forcing the enemy to keep their shields up. So he moved around the bridge, treating injuries and fixing damage. Yuna, still wounded, was back at a console coordinating their few remaining defenses. They were all hurt. They were all exhausted. They were all terrified, but they kept working. 3 minutes, Minho said. Another hit. This one worse. The ship groaned. Metal tore somewhere deep inside. Captain, Hyunwoo said. His voice was strained. I need to shut down engines. If I don't, we're going to have a core breach. Dead in space. That's what he was saying. If they stopped, they would be helpless. The Kethril would board them, would kill them, would take the data. How long until council ships arrive? Captain Jiwon asked. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. An eternity. An impossibility. Shut them down, Captain Jiwon ordered. But first, Minho, point us right at them. Full speed, Captain. If we're going to sit here, let's make them nervous. Point all our remaining weapons at them. Make them think we're going to ram. Velnash understood. A desperate bluff. Make the enemy hesitate. By seconds. By time. Minho turned the ship. The damaged engine screamed with effort. The rising dawn accelerated straight at the battlecruiser. All their weapons locked on. The enemy ship stopped firing. Just for a moment. Trying to decide if these insane humans would actually try to ram a battlecruiser with a tiny diplomatic ship. They would. Velnash knew it. These humans would absolutely do it. Now, Captain Jiwon said. The engines shut down. The rising dawn drifted in space, all momentum carrying it toward the battlecruiser, but slowing. No longer a threat, just a wounded bird falling. The enemy ship started firing again. Everyone, brace positions, Captain Jiwon ordered. This is going to get rough. The crew strapped into their seats. Those who could helped those who couldn't. So-hee made sure Yuna was secure. Taehyun helped Hyunwoo lock down the engineering console. Hits came steadily now. One after another. The ship shook with each impact. Systems failed. Fires started. The air began to smell like smoke and burned metal. 7 minutes, someone said. Velnash couldn't tell who. Everything was chaos. The bridge was full of smoke now. Half the consoles were dead. The lights kept flickering. Velnash could hear the hull groaning, ready to tear apart. He looked at the humans. They were holding on. Some were praying. Some were quiet. Captain Jiwon sat in her chair with her eyes closed, breathing slowly. 6 minutes. Velnash thought about his people, the proud Thornians who had never known defeat. What would they think of him dying here? Would they call him foolish? Weak? Would they understand that he had chosen this? He thought about what Hyunwoo had said, that the Thornians had never learned bravery because they never needed to. They were born strong and stayed strong. These humans were born weak, and they chose strength. Every day, every moment, every impossible situation. That was worth dying for. That was worth everything. 5 minutes. The battlecruiser was moving closer now. They were preparing to board, to take the ship, to capture anyone still alive. Captain, Taehyun said, they're launching assault pods. Let them come. Captain Ji-won opened her eyes. She picked up her rifle. We'll meet them at the airlock. They couldn't win. They all knew it. But they would fight anyway, because that's what humans did. Velnash stood. His legs were shaky, but they held. He picked up his weapon. I will fight with you. Captain Ji-won looked at him. She nodded once, respect in her eyes. The assault pods attached to the hull with heavy thuds. Cutting torches began to burn through the airlock doors. The sound of metal being torn filled the ship. The crew formed up. 7 against hundreds, impossible odds. Certain death. 4 minutes, Minho said. He was standing too, a pistol in his hand. He wasn't humming anymore. The airlock door fell inward. Kethral mercenaries poured through, armed and armored and ready. The humans opened fire. The fight was desperate. Close quarters, no room to move. Just shooting and reloading and shooting again. Velnash fought beside them. His claws tore through armor. His rifle took down enemies. But there were too many. Always too many. They were pushed back. Step by step. Fighting for every meter. Bodies fell on both sides. More human than enemy. But the humans kept fighting. Velnash took a hit. Then another. His armor held, but he felt ribs crack. Pain shot through his chest. He stumbled. Yuna grabbed his arm. The small human, still bleeding from her own wounds, held him up. Keep moving, she said. They fell back to the bridge, the last defensive position. The door sealed behind them. It wouldn't hold long. 3 minutes, Hyunwoo said. He was bleeding from a head wound. Council ships are almost here. We won't last 3 minutes, Taehyun said. Captain Ji-won was sitting against a wall. She had been hit. Bad. So-hee was trying to stop the bleeding, but there was too much blood. Did the message get through? The captain asked. Her voice was weak. Yes, Hyunwoo said. Multiple council ships received it. They're broadcasting it to everyone. The whole galaxy will know what the Kethral did. Captain Ji-won smiled. Good. Then it was worth it. The bridge door began to glow as cutting torches bit into it. The mercenaries were coming. This was the end. Velnash knelt beside Captain Ji-won. Why? He asked. Why did you do all this? You could have lived. You could have been safe. She looked at him with those soft human eyes. Because someone had to. Because people needed help. Because it was the right thing to do. She coughed, blood on her lips. We're afraid, Ambassador. We're always afraid. But fear can't stop us. Not when people need us. I understand now, Velnash said. I was wrong about your species, about strength, about courage. You taught me what real bravery is. You learned, she said. That's what matters. The door burst open. Mercenaries rushed in. The last fight began. But then, through the smoke and chaos, Velnash heard something beautiful. The sound of weapons fire. Different weapons. Not Kethral, not human. Council weapons. Reinforcements had arrived. Council Marines were boarding the battle cruiser. The mercenaries stopped their assault, confused. Orders were being shouted. The enemy was falling back. 2 minutes, Minho said. He was laughing and crying at the same time. We held for 2 more minutes than we thought we could. The Council Marines reached the rising dawn. They secured the ship. Medical teams rushed in. Velnash watched as they surrounded Captain Ji-won, working frantically to save her life. Will she live? He asked one of the medics. Maybe. She lost a lot of blood. But she's fighting. Of course she was fighting. That's what humans did. 3 weeks later, Velnash stood in a council medical station. Captain Ji-won was in a bed, pale but alive. The rest of her crew was there too. Battered, scarred, but alive. Ambassador, she said when she saw him. Glad you made it. As am I, Captain, as am I. They talked about the mission, about the aftermath. The Kethral leadership had been arrested. The bioweapons program shut down. Billions of lives saved. all because 7 people on a small ship chose to care. Later, Velnash was invited to Earth, to their military academy, to speak about his experience. He stood before a room full of young human,